Let's bring in Mehran Kamrava, an Iranian-American political scientist, one of the leading contemporary scholars in Middle East politics. He is Professor of Government of Georgetown University in Qatar. Welcome to the programme tonight, Mehran. Great to have you with us. My first thought is where you see this protest, uprising, if that's the right word right now, at its stage right now as things stand, what you believe to be happening.
Gavin, 2 weeks ago, we couldn't imagine things spiraling to this point. And so it's extremely difficult to predict what scenarios are likely to happen in the coming days. Typically, these kinds of protests have lasted for several weeks, and then they've either died down on their own or the government has clamped down. We have to see what happens within the next week or two. I think that will be quite decisive. Particularly, we have to see how the Revolutionary Guards behave. Will they continue to clamp down? Will they stand aside and let the protesters have their say? Or what will their behavior be? I think that's a very critical space to watch in the coming days.
How do you read the extent of the message, the risks that this now involves, given out by Reza Pahlavi, the former Crown Prince, calling on protesters to seize and hold city centres?
Well, Reza Pahlavi enjoys brand recognition. He's someone whose name is known. He hasn't articulated a program. He hasn't articulated a plan or a vision for Iran's future. Certainly hasn't put together a democratic coalition. But he is known. His father's image has been rehabilitated thanks to the gross incompetence of the Islamic Republic. And therefore, he has now emerged as a symbol that opposes the Islamic Republic. I think, again, we have to wait and see to what extent protesters will begin to call for his return. Already over the last couple of days, we've heard his name far more frequently than we did a week ago or 10 days ago.
It is very interesting because you touched upon it there. You know, in terms of a popularity contest, the Shah, his father Mohammed, wasn't popular, was he, before the uprising happened in '79? And you talk about a kind of rehabilitation. Is that because there's a genuine sense that he is the answer, given that what you just said to me, that there is no agenda in place, other than the fact that we know that he said he's preparing his return? Or is it the fact that there is a lack of opposition because many of them have been disappeared or in prison, including Nobel laureates?
Exactly. The Islamic Republic has decimated any viable opposition that could potentially have a vision for a post-Islamic Republic Iran. And, there's also this cult, the Mujahideen Khalq, which is based in Albania. They have really no social base. And so by default, because of name recognition, Reza Pahlavi has emerged in a symbolic way. I think it's fair to say that he doesn't really have a social base, or he has not had a social base in Iran up until this point. And he is emerging as someone whose name is known, whose face is out there in the social media. And so people are calling for his return.
Very interesting. You talk about kind of some of the splits within the opposition, or some of the concern about some movements. And you mentioned one of them, the People's Mujahideen of Iran, MEK. We see in the last few days there are significant kind of hawks in the US calling and promoting the agenda. The former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, John Bolton as well, former state advisor to President Trump. What's your take here? Because this is a group that some see as far too aligned to, to being problematic in the past to Iranians, violence, being aligned to Saddam Hussein in Iraq as well. Explain to me the MEK and why that is a concern to lots of protesters right now.
Well, the names you mentioned, Rudy Giuliani, John Bolton, really says a lot about the support among the far right wing of the Republican Party in the United States that the Mujahideen have been able to garner, thanks largely to their financial largesse and their ability to sponsor these jaunts. I think it's important to remember that the Mujahideen Khalq, or MEK, were on the terrorism list of the United States. Senator or Secretary of State Hillary Clinton removed them because of tensions with Iran from the list of terrorist groups. And they really don't have a social base in Iran. But again, they are the only viable opposition, or one of the only viable opposition groups that are left standing, largely because the Islamic Republic, as you mentioned, has really gone after whoever has dared to oppose it: intellectuals, university professors, activists, even filmmakers and movie actors, artists have been jailed and have been declared persona non grata.
You mentioned a number of things which takes us back into what's happening now, the internet blackouts. One of those is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. If there is a path towards any kind of change, you touched upon it. There has to be a crack. There has to be somebody or a division within that says things need to change if the Ayatollah is going to be removed or things shift. The Economist running a piece this week suggesting that an economist who's in favour with the regime up until recently, this is Sayed Lelaz, has quoted that he's urged the Ayatollah to step down in favour of a Bonaparte-type figure. One of them he mentions is this man, Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, who's a parliamentary speaker. Is he relevant in this story right now?
Ghalibaf has been one of the mainstays of the Islamic Republic. He was former mayor of Tehran. He's been Speaker of the Iranian Parliament for more than a decade now. He has been highly tainted in a number of corruption scandals, but he does project an image of a builder, of someone who is a developmentalist and has had a developmental agenda. And so I think by all accounts, the Islamic Republic has reached a dead end with Ayatollah Khamenei at the helm. Now, whether or not Khamenei steps down or someone puts pressure on him to step down in order to preserve the system is an interesting question mark. And I think there have been those calls in the past, and of course he has dismissed them. Whether or not this is a different moment in the history of the Islamic Republic is yet to be seen.
And it's an ominous sign, isn't it? In the midst of this blackout, we're hearing from medics and doctors at hospitals to say that they're dealing with an overwhelming number of people injured. Very hard information is slow to a trickle in terms of videos coming out of there. And again, that adds to that sense of concern. As you look ahead, I just wonder whether you think, compare this to protest movements gone by. Is it very hard to distinguish? And do you see, as some commentators have suggested, we are seeing an end to the Islamic Republic in the form it's in right now? Do you give that credence?
You know, it's really hard to tell. In the obituary of the Islamic Republic has been written many times in the past, but yet the system continues to persevere. Whether or not this is the decisive time, I think we will be able to tell within the next week or so. But remember, just as recently as 2021, we also had mass nationwide protests because of the death of Mahsa Amini. And again, we thought the Islamic Republic was on the verge of collapse, and it persevered. So I think I don't necessarily want to make a prediction, but I do think the next week or two will be critical in the life of the Islamic Republic and whether or not it can outlast the current round of protests, or if we're seeing the end of it.
A final thought for now, Mehran, we will talk again in future. Are you having any contact from colleagues, friends, contacts inside Iran, or has that slowed to zero for you as well?
You know, I did up until Thursday night, and then the Iranian authorities closed the internet, and now you can't even place simple phone calls into the country. So unfortunately, it's become extremely difficult to get information from friends, colleagues, and associates inside the country.
Really good to talk to you tonight, Mehran. Thank you for your time. Mehran Kamrava, as I said before, Professor of Government at Georgetown University in Qatar, who directs the Iranian Studies Unit at the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies. We will talk soon. Thank you, Mehran.